I tell you what, Mike Sando has been coming on our shows for a long time. Great guy, great writer with The Athletic. I almost feel bad bringing him in here because I don't know that he realizes what a landmine he's stepping into. You know, this has been obviously as part of the cover.
I can take it.
I know you can, Mike. I just feel like I should give you a heads up. As part of the Cover 7 in The Athletic, Mike Sando writes about quarterbacks every Thursday. By the way, all guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. And yesterday, Mike wrote about Brock Purdy. Mike Sando joins us. How are you, Mike? It's great to talk with you again. Fascinating piece yesterday on Brock Purdy. Have you ever seen a quarterback who's been discussed this way, this deep into his career? There's so many people that love him and so many people that aren't sure about him yet.
Yes, I have. I wrote about the other one. It was the exact same thing with Dak Prescott in 2016. It's exactly the same. I mean, Prescott comes into the Cowboys. They got 3 all-pro offensive linemen. They got Jason Witten, Des Bryant, Zeke Elliott's leading the league in rushing. And he comes out gangbusters. He goes 9-1, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And people were like, oh, this Prescott guy's good. But, man, the 49ers didn't even want him. They tried to draft Paxton Lynch. I mean, can this guy really be this good? How do you know when there's such good players around him? And here we are with Brock Purdy. They didn't really want him, right? They wanted Trey Lance. And yet now he's doing great through 10 games. They're 10-0, 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But, you know, they got that Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Shanahan's an amazing play caller. You got George Kittle. You got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, how much of it really is him anyway? What would it look like if he was on a bad team? And you know, we're 10 games in. It looks pretty good. He's really answered every test there is that he could have. There's nothing really else he could do beyond what he's done, right? He's aced the test. And the question is, when the test gets a little harder, do you keep acing it? And we'll find out.
Mike Sando, I tell you what, man, you must have talked to me last week because I've been saying the exact words here every single day on this show, and Niners fans are killing me for it. When you say, you know, he could be like Dak Prescott, because we've seen this before, is that a knock? Like, to me, that's not a knock. Like, 49ers fans want to take it as we're criticizing him. Or I said I need to see more from Brock Purdy. When the going gets tough, that's what I want to see. But they're taking it as sort of some sort of criticism or knock.
Yeah, I don't think so. For me, I'm not invested in the team as a fan, so I'm just sort of putting it out there. I did have fun with the idea of the fact that they just knocked the socks off Dallas with Prescott. People are down on Dak. They think he's not good now. And so to have Brock Purdy compared to him does feel like a slight of Brock Purdy. And I knew that going in. That's why I think the first lead of the story was like, forgive the comparison here, because we're not trying to take a shot. It was really... I didn't cook this up thinking – I didn't think of Prescott at all. I went and looked statistically. I was just trying to find, hey, who's won about this many games in their first 10? Like, who's just lit it up? And he was the one that came up that was recent, and I thought, geez, I remember that. They were loaded. No one gave Dak any due, and then pretty soon, within 4 or 5 years, he's signing a $40 million deal. So that's a success story. Now, obviously, you know, he's been injured. I think he's not as good as he used to be, and – he stagnated a little bit. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen to Brock Purdy. We shouldn't say that. I think at the same time, we should take into account that, hey, it's early and it's been sensational. But, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo was 8-2 in his first 10 starts, you know, and passed for more yards with 10 more explosive pass completions, also had more interceptions. You know, so, you know, it's always a fun discussion to have. But
I love it, Mike.
You say this about Purdy, like, what has Purdy – there's nothing Purdy shown that makes you think he can't be a success long term.
Right. And just to, you know, clarify, one of the reasons some people think that Kyle is hard on Brock Purdy is because 2 weeks ago, Kyle came out and said, I apologize for what I said about Brock Purdy. He's better than I thought. You actually said
no,
that.
I did.
Did you not?
I did say it because, Mike, I compared him sort of to Linsanity in the NBA, Jeremy Lin. You know, the Knicks fans loved him. He had a good month or two run, and then he came crashing back down to earth. I actually don't think Brock Purdy is Linsanity. I think he is a good quarterback. But the fact remains, and reading your article, you know, the quotes you had from several defensive coaches, I want to read this one. This is one that, you know, really stood out to me. One defensive coach said, "You will see Purdy. He will crow hop. He will get the ball out there. It's not always pretty, but there are a lot of layups." And that was my point, because of Kyle Shanahan's system, because of the talent on that team, he hasn't had to, fit it into tight corners as much. He has guys running free out there in that secondary, I feel, a lot.
And he does. Now, to the counter to that is he's such a quick decision maker and good decision maker that he does throw the ball with anticipation too. So sometimes he's throwing that ball and the receiver hasn't even turned around.
Right.
And if you can do that, and if you're seeing everything clearly, you can do that when they're covered too, as long as the defender has their back to you. So I think there's some real encouraging signs along that way. Like, he seems to know what to do. He seems to make the right decision. He may have great choices because there's guys open, but you don't ever really watch him and go, ooh, you're not going, oh, wrong decision.
Right.
Now, when we watched Jordan Love or Jimmy Garoppolo in that game the other night, you're like, what was he looking at? I mean, he threw it right to the guy on the other team.
Right.
That just doesn't happen with Brock Purdy. We don't really see that evidence. And so, I think when we do see him trailing or in 2-minute situations, heck, he may thrive because he seems to be a cool customer and not be flustered by it, but we still haven't seen it. So.
Yeah, that's where the comparison to Jimmy Garoppolo breaks down. Mike Sando from The Athletic is with us. And Jimmy, yes, he did some wonderful things as a 49er, but he also was prone to those moments in the middle of a game where what was he looking at? And we haven't seen that from Brock Purdy, at least not yet. But I wanted to ask you, Mike, because I know you're talking all the time to people who evaluate quarterback talent for a living. Are there some talent evaluators who are just never going to see Brock as truly an elite quarterback because he doesn't have an elite arm?
I think there's some of that initially in the evaluation. So, when I do the quarterback tiers every year, right? Tier 1, Tier 2. The most of the Tier 1 guys are different physically, right? It's Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow in terms of how he throws the ball, although he's not absolutely just off the charts in terms of physical prowess like some of those guys. But they're guys, if you put together the highlights of their throws, there'd probably be more wow throws than a Brock Purdy, right? Where you'd go, oh my gosh, how did he do that? That being said, for many years, Drew Brees was a Tier 1 quarterback. And Drew Brees was not on the level of Drew Brees' highlight reel is not the same as Mahomes's or Justin Herbert's, right? Those guys who they make a throw that's impossible. Like no one else can do it. Across the field on a rope. That's probably not going to be Purdy, but it doesn't mean that he can't have success like those guys do. And I think Drew Brees is the example that gets brought up a lot when you have a guy who's maybe not as sensational physically, but makes good decisions quickly, seems to be accurate, seems to process well. And then if you're good in the other areas, like you're just really driven and you really are going to work at it and you have a way with your teammates, those are kind of some boxes that Purdy seems to check, right? He has to prove it over more than 10 games, but I think you got to be pretty optimistic.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. And when I look at your article, one thing you pointed out, which could be true, we're waiting to see Brock Purdy in these difficult situations, having to lead his team down the field in the last 2 minutes, what have you. That might not happen. He may not even have to do that at all for this team to win the Super Bowl, Mike.
That's true. That's really true. And I went back and looked at the last 10 Super Bowl winners. They actually didn't have a lot of times in the playoffs when they were way, behind late and had to do it. So, I think the key for the 49ers will be, like all of these teams, and then keep your guys healthy, right? Just don't be losing the wrong guys at the wrong time and make it too hard on yourself. If this team goes in to the playoffs like they are right now, I mean, you would like them over where Kansas City is right now, probably, right? I mean, you'd be feeling pretty good about where they're at. So I think it's exciting, actually, kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a great piece in The Athletic. It was yesterday, Mike Sando, as part of the Cover 7. Mike, before we let you go, 49ers look like they're catching a break this week. Looks like they're going to have P.J. Walker under center for the Browns. Do we know what's going on with Deshaun Watson? Is it just a matter of, hey, he's needing a little extra time to recover from this injury? Yeah. Or are people there starting to wonder about why he's not playing yet?
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone there in the building or on that team that I know of is worried about that. I think there's been a little bit of, I don't know if their communication's been the smoothest on it, because I think they did think that he might play, but it has to come down to him he's like not throwing, and then he goes to a workout to throw, and that's the only time you really find out if he can do it. And so I think they've shown in those workouts, like I think one of them was even on video, a pregame one. It was like there was no way if you watched him throw, he can't do it. So I don't think there's any. This is one of those situations where he's got nothing to gain by, it's not like he's looking for a new contract or there's anything like that. I think he's been a tough guy, and I think if he could play, he'll play. And it's been kind of a week-to-week deal where he tests it out, and it just doesn't seem like it's ready to go. So, tough for them, because I think if he was playing, it would be a nice little measuring stick for everybody.
Mike Sando, thank you, Mike. Enjoy the games this weekend. We appreciate it. Great stuff as always in The Athletic, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Now, are you feeling better about Brock Purdy now that Mike's kind of educated a little bit? Like, hey, this guy's really good.
I feel like what I've been saying all along has been validated by someone objective who's not wearing 49ers colors when they go to bed at night, And so shout out to Mike Sando. He's been back. He said he backed up everything I've been saying.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Outside of the Eagles, they are Super Bowl favorites. Jay Johnson in my ear. The Niners are so what? Right now, week 6, but as you know, Jay, you don't win the Super Bowl in October. You don't win the Super Bowl in October. Now, if they go into Philly and win October in December 3rd, week 13, then I'm going to anoint them as the favorites. Right now, come on, man.
Jay says, and I'm sure some Niner fans feel the same way. Other Niner fans feel like I'm letting you off the hook, but I'm just letting it percolate. And we're keeping receipts. That's all good.
Exactly. You know what? We could do all this talking right now, Niners fans, Whitey, Jay, whoever, but ultimately it will be decided on the field. And December 3rd is the date. I'm telling you, that game is going to matter for home field advantage. And whoever has home field advantage is going to the Super Bowl between the Niners and the Eagles.
You have moved the goalposts on Brock Purdy a little bit.
Yeah, right? Because more information.